Hi everyone, William here, Grand Duke Dmitri, 1917 Diary Series. I think my dogs are finished eating, so hopefully there won't be chewing noise in the background. So, our recap. Last time we'd gone back in time a little to the 26th of September. We've been in October, but we were in the 26th of September, and it was the first of the first little tremor of what would become very soon an earthquake with respect to Dmitri gambling, specifically his favorite card wager or game was baccarat. So he lost 150 tumans, which was a considerable amount. Okay. Here we go. We're now going ahead to 1st October, which was the day of the transfer between Gulen and Tehran. Here we go. 1st October, the day we moved. Here in Persia, it's a big affair to move from town to Gulen and back again. You need to take absolutely everything, from furniture to carpets. Thus, 3 days before the designated date, there were already very long caravans stretched out along the road, with mules laden with every kind of thing, beds with their legs sticking out, divans, tables and chairs, then lamps and things of that sort, which the Persians carried on their heads, placed on huge wooden trays. As I said earlier, I am quartered upstairs, but my room is awfully nice and cozy. In general, I have become so used to the Marlings that I often catch myself thinking that I'm at home instead of a guest. I hope that's not obvious. I already mentioned that on the very first day in Tehran, I got a call from Hartmann, and he came to see me around 6 o'clock in the evening. I was overjoyed to see him. He talked with me a long time about what was happening with the regiment. Things aren't going well there. He brought me a letter from Baratov saying that he would like to appoint me the liaison officer between them and the mission. Then he reaffirmed his previous words that it would be better for me to move to a separate apartment in town. Hartmann supports him in that, but doesn't insist on it. I have no idea how to answer Baratov. Okay, this ongoing conflict over where Dmitri is going to stay. So I'm surprised a little bit that they had to take everything with them when they moved from one place to another. The Marlings and the English legation, you would think that each place would simply be furnished rather than having to move even things like beds and divans and tables, but apparently not. So I think Dmitri found that quite interesting. And let's see, as for him, he never needed grand accommodations. It's funny because he was so attached to his furniture, and when he got to Europe, to London and Paris, he was aghast at the idea of taking a furnished place. He always wanted his own furniture. But as far as when he's somebody else's guest or when he's traveling, he never complains. It just doesn't bother him. He can have a small room. In one instance, as you'll see, in 1918, he shared a little cabin with a junior secretary or something from the legation, and that was just fine with him. And the people who were making a fuss were the Marlings. They were not happy with their accommodations and complaining and that sort of thing. But that just wasn't Dmitri. He made do. Okay, yeah, I think overall he was not a demanding guest, and he's certainly, of course, conscious of the difficulties that any house guest presents. But already there's this real chemistry between him and the Marlings. He's just slipped right into being the eldest son of the family. They had 4 children. And I don't think they did resent it at all. And in fact, they would be important to him for the rest of his life. And when their children were adults, their children would stay in touch with him. And so, yeah, it was, I don't, you know, it was something that it was good of him to worry about, but he didn't need to. All right, so that brings us to the real conflict here. Now, you remember from previous diary entries that he had indeed been had a visit from Hartmann, who was had been the commander of the Horse Guards, and then after the revolution went east to Central Asia to be in charge of a cavalry corps there. And what they talked about was how the Horse Guards had basically fallen apart. So there's this interim period between when the provisional government is still in place and Kerensky and the other higher-up members were in favor of continuing the war, and when the Bolsheviks took over, and that was the end of it. And I'm sure the Horse Guards ceased to exist after that. But Dmitri was still on the hook. He was still an officer, an active duty officer. Now, he'd been sent away by Baratov, kind of put on semi-permanent leave because his presence was a danger, given how agitated the men were among the troops that were there in Kazvin, where he'd been headquartered. But now, you know, so Baratov has what sounds like a good idea. You can be the liaison officer between the British diplomatic establishment in Persia and the Russian troops on the border or just inside the border. And, you know, it's kind of a made-up post, but they could do without it. But on the other hand, he would have been good at it, such as it was. And he'd also had an offer of a job as an instructor in the Persian Cossack division. Hartmann had advised him against taking that, but this job with Baratov would have been, and in fact was, tailor-made for him. But there was a big problem with that. The problem was that he could not live at the English mission if he was really carrying out duties as a Russian officer. That was just off the table. So he's getting this mild pressure. Baratov isn't saying, look, I'm your commander and this is an order, but he's made it clear that he does not want Dmitri to stay at the legation. So, you know, Dmitri and Hartmann supports that. They want him to have his own apartment. So Dmitri says, I have no idea how to answer Baratov because he's not going to leave the legation. So that's kind of an impasse there. All right, so a nice short one. What do we have next time? Well, Dmitri's first evening that he describes at the Imperial Club in Tehran. So recall when he first arrived in Persia, they were already in their summer quarters in Gulhek, this small, not even town in the foothills of the Elburz Mountains. Well, now they're back where there's some actual society, such as it was in Tehran. So he'll be going to the Imperial Club. And what's wrong with going to the Imperial Club? Well, nothing, except they had baccarat at the Imperial Club. Anyway, we'll see how that works out, and next time we'll be able to do 2 diary entries, the 2nd and 3rd of October, and yeah, anyway, I hope you'll come back. See you then.